This is Inside Real Estate with Terry Paranych. I'm Michael Crichton. Terry Paranych, one of the top 5 real estate agents in the world and worldwide, and also an expert on real estate, having built, sold, bought many homes, many developments. And this is a show for you to find out what happens when I want to sell my home. What do I look for when I want to buy a home? These are the kind of questions we ask in this show. And I like to start off with that famous 3-letter word. MLS, Multiple Listing Services. Explain that to someone. I mean, I'm aware of what multiple listing services are, but what the heck is it supposed to do? What
Mike,
should it give you?
The multiple listing service is amazing. It's a system where when we list a house, it goes into a huge database. Mm-hmm. That every single real estate agent who's a member of the multiple listing service has access to that house. So let me give you a great example. So, Mike, let's just say you've had a client and you sat down, and I know in one of our past episodes we talked about how to conduct a buyer interview and what's important to qualify a buyer and identify their needs. So you've done that, and you've had your buyers out, and you've found some properties that match their criteria, and you're driving them around, and that with technology now, you're updated on your BlackBerry or your iPhone every second of a new listing that comes up that matches your client's criteria on the MLS.
Right.
But what happens, Mike, is the great thing about the MLS is so tomorrow you're taking your clients out. Now they're a little bit frustrated. They've now looked at 15, 16, 17 houses, haven't found that perfect house. Mm-hmm. Now me, Terry Paranych, the big listing real estate agent, lists a house this morning that totally matches your client's criteria. And and we talked about the fishing story. So all of a sudden, that new listing of mine goes into the water. And remember, you're working with the fish.
Right.
So all of a sudden, you see this and you book a time with your clients. Never mind tomorrow. It's perfect. You pick up the phone and you phone me, Terry, this house sounds perfect based on your description and all of its details. And you take them there tonight and they walk in and absolutely fall in love. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a win-win, and this is one of the greatest things about the MLS. Not only do my clients end up selling their home the first day that it's on the market, usually for near or at full price, and your clients have found the home of their dreams. And that's the power of the MLS. You just never know when that perfect house is going to come on. So when a home is listed for sale, it goes into the MLS, and that's a perfect example how the MLS works. Now, if you're selling privately, there's no MLS. You put it in the journal, or you put it in one of these different, internet advertising facilities or something like that. But the power of MLS is this: you could have your home off the market today and put it on the market tomorrow in the MLS, and there's several hungry fish ready to bite your hook and buy your home.
Multiple listing services, the strengths of MLS.
It's amazing.
I think we in a world that we live in today, where we have the BlackBerries and the iPhones and the internet, where we can be so connected to so many options, it is perhaps, or would I be correct in saying it's easier to find the right buyer for the right home these days? Is it?
Yes, I mean, with finding the right buyer for the right home. Right now, our market, we have, let's just say right around 5,000 homes for sale. And there are new homes being sold every day and new homes coming on the market every day, homes whose prices are being reduced every day. So the multiple listing service usually makes up for a little over 90% of all of the homes that are for sale in the greater Edmonton area, or for that fact, in most real estate markets in Canada. But, I would often say to home sellers, that would consider selling privately, I'd say, well, if all of the buyers are here, mm-hmm. and there are very few buyers here, where do you think you're going to get the most amount of money?
Right.
And that's with an MLS listing, working with a professional real estate agent. And again, that's my opinion. But the truth is, if all of the buyers, Mike, are looking at MLS houses, that's most likely where you're going to get the most amount of money.
Now, shifting gears just slightly, a lot of people sit around the island, they're getting ready to sell a home, they're getting ready to buy a home. Now comes the discussion, the real estate market. Take me into an understanding of when you start talking about real estate market, what are the kinds of things one should start thinking about or talking about when we talk about a real estate market?
Well, the fact of a real estate market, whether it's good or bad, people are buying and selling homes in every market. Everything, comes down to, somebody's personal situation, their family situation. It could be a marital realignment, better word for divorce, or a family trade. Yeah, nothing about that.
Nothing about
what are you on your third now? Or
not counting.
Yeah. But I mean, your family situation. I mean, truthfully though, people and often people will make an emotional decision. They'll be out on a Saturday or a Sunday and they'll see a show home, and all of a sudden decide, oh my God, we have to have this, or we have to build a new home with this builder, and they go back. Bring in a real estate agent like myself who will evaluate their property, and all of a sudden their property's perhaps not worth as much as they thought it was. So the market can have a lot of impact on your decision. But the fact of the matter is, I really feel that if you buy a home in any market and it's the right home, most likely you will stay there. So take your time, make the right decision.
Okay, now I think a lot of people out there, typically like me, I'm not a real estate expert like you are, or professional, but I think about buyer's market, seller's market. Now, what does that really mean? I mean, I understand on the basic platform what it means, but take me
supply and demand.
Supply and demand.
So, I mean, real estate is all based on supply and demand. So if the supply is very, very high, you need to be more competitive in your pricing. And if you're a home buyer, so here you are a seller, and there are 15 properties in your geographical, demographical area right there that are basically the same. Well, all of a sudden, you know what? You need to be competitive amongst those homes for sale in order for the buyer to be interested. But again, Mike, in that situation, the buyer now has a little more negotiating ability, because now they're looking at 15 homes that match their criteria. They've selected 4 or 5 that perhaps they'd like to make an offer on, and chances are the offer is going to come in quite a bit lower than your asking price, simply because it is a buyer's market. Now, that doesn't happen all the time, but in a seller's market like we had here in 2006, 2007, I remember I had 23 offers on one house. The home came on the market. Actually, the EPS were called because we were presenting the offers at 9 o'clock at night. Several of those real estate agents brought all of their customers. Of course, their customers come in their own cars or minivans, plus all the real estate agents. I mean, all of a sudden, this quiet neighborhood was turned upside down. It was like a big circus. Real estate agents outside waiting to get in to present their offer, because at that particular time, when that home hit an MLS, you had 20, 30 buyers that were looking for that kind of a house. So the seller, in that case, sold their home for $44,000 above the asking price. So there's a huge market based on supply and demand when it comes to the real estate market. So when the supply is high, the buyer negotiates and is usually able to get a pretty good deal. Right. When the market is very rabid and busy and the supply is very low, look out, it turns in the seller's favor. But you know what's funny? People buy in both markets. Well, it doesn't stop people.
Exactly.
From buying or selling.
The movement continues. It's about being exposed. So what you're saying is that then as a buyer, should I automatically assume that I might be looking at asking more? If I'm selling, I should ask more in a buyer's market?
Well, no. In a buyer's market, you may think, okay, well, I'm going to ask more money for my home to have more room for the buyer to negotiate. So the seller says, well, the home evaluation comes in at, we should put our home on the market for, let's say, $379,000. And now the seller says to me, yeah, Terry, but it's a buyer's market and I want to have some room to negotiate. I want to ask $420,000. Well, what's going to happen is your home at $420,000 is going to be a selling point, or what I call a launching pad for all those other homes to get sold, because they look at yours at $420,000 and then they're looking at homes either the same or better at $375,000 or $369,000 or $380,000. So your home is that overpriced turkey that won't end up selling. Right. And now all of a sudden we're going to have to start reducing the price, and the longer it sits, the less you get. So definitely in a buyer's market, price your home correctly. Price your home based on what the X-ray of the neighborhood says. And in a buyer's market, you will be successful selling your home. But in a seller's market, that's the interesting question where people say, well, Terry, man, it's changing so fast. That's where real estate agents have to be very professional, and that's where you definitely want to hire a true real estate professional that has the experience in your market area, because they can identify what's actually happened in the last 24 hours. And I remember when the market here was so rabid, it was literally hourly you were adjusting prices. It was amazing.
So markets can change quite quickly.
Yes, they can. And usually, I know our market here in Edmonton, several times over my career, I've seen it change almost overnight. Within a month, all of a sudden our supply has gone way down and the demand has gone way up.
Now let's take a look. I mean, there's two things going on. You have existing homes.
Yes.
And there's different categories of existing homes where I don't know how you would divide it up. The last 5 years, the last 10 years. Then, of course, there's historic homes and so on. That would be for a very eclectic type of person. I think someone who's interested in maybe a fix-me-up, that kind of thing.
Sure.
But there's also a lot of development, or especially in places where there's a lot of development going on. How do you work with people who maybe are thinking about the very new home, but there's opportunities in homes that are a little bit older?
Well, Michael, that's as a matter of fact, my sister-in-law and her husband, they got married, had a couple of kids, and she's a school teacher, and her house was definitely too small. She had owned the house prior to getting married. And so after a few years having the kids, they decided they needed something bigger. And, typical, so here their brother-in-law is a real estate agent, but they go out one Saturday and are all set to buy a home, nowhere near family or friends, nowhere near any schools where the kids are going to, very soon be participating. But they fell in love with the trees of this new subdivision, and it had a creek, and it was a nice subdivision. They fell in love with a new builder's show home, and then of course they were going to build a brand new home that's going to be ready in less than a year.
Right.
So I said, you know what, guys? I said, let's consider all of these options. You're moving out of your what I call family trade area, where you shop, where the kids are going to go to school,
right.
where the kids are playing sports, churches, etc. I said, let's look at some pre-owned houses. So as a matter of fact, we went out, and the first day, power of the MLS, 3 days prior, a home was listed that was the same size, only 2 years old, and the fellow that owned the home was actually a home builder who built his own home. Well, he was a general manager of a home building company, so he had got all these great upgrades.
Right.
Huge pie-shaped lot, fully finished basement, top-end appliances and window coverings. As a matter of fact, they got a hot tub thrown in, a steam room, a great kids' play center, right in the trade area where my sister-in-law and her husband and the kids lived. And as a matter of fact, that house was about $80,000 less than the brand new one, which would have come without a finished basement, without the landscaping, without the fence. So I always recommend when you're buying a home, you can, if you're thinking of buying new, yes, look around, get educated, but always look at what the pre-owned market has to offer, because usually the perfect house is there at a better price with way more items included.
You're watching Inside Real Estate with Terry Paranych. I'm Michael Crichton. Of course, Terry Paranych, one of the top 5 real estate agents in the world and worldwide. And I guess one last question. We got a couple of minutes left. And obviously, it makes sense to go and talk to a real estate agent about the market. Although you'd have to be able to trust the person you're talking to know what kind of information you're getting. So I'm wondering, if you're telling those people that are looking at selling or buying a home, if you want to assess the market, you should...
Well, if you want to assess the market, whether you're buying a home or selling a home, sit down with a professional real estate agent. How do you select that agent? Well, you know what? Find an agent who's an expert in the area that you're looking at. Sit down with them. They're licensed. They've traded in the area for a long time. And the greatest thing, Mike, is that real estate agent will take the time, because it doesn't cost you anything, whether you're a buyer or a seller, to get that advice, and it's free.
Well, and of course, if you're looking for someone who's an expert in your particular area, 9 times out of 10, that would probably be Terry Paranych, because you pretty much had experience in all of the areas, certainly of this market, as well as having given talks and done seminars internationally. So you'd have to put a Terry Paranych on your list, and maybe it's a good thing to talk to more than one real estate agent if you want to be sure that you've got a good snapshot of what's going on. Well, we've talked about MLS, we've talked about the markets, and we will be talking a lot more about these kinds of things, so be sure to tell your friends to join us every week here on Fuse Logic TV. You're watching Inside Real Estate with Terry Paranych. I'm Michael Crichton.